Hello. Today we're going to be talking about the reading from week 6, How to Write Like a Scientist. So, looking at this photograph right here, um, it's a billboard piece that actually gives tips for how to write like a scientist. Scientists ask questions, of course, as we spot here. They describe size and shape and give all kinds of specifics such as colors and numbers and lots of details, very specific details. Scientists are known for, it's a field where you write very direct details with as few words as possible. It's certainly not considered a field in which you would write using flowery language. Which brings us to Adam Rubin's article, How to Write Like a Scientist. His argument in this piece is that using the first person in your writing humanizes your work. And then, of course, his PhD advisor brought up that, if possible, therefore, you should avoid using the first person in your writing. He also brings up that Mr. Rubin should be avoiding using words such as lone. Rubin uses the word lone in a piece of his work, and apparently his advisor says that's a very bad thing. He says, see that word right there? That is not science. So depending on what field you're going to be going in, there is likely a different type of writing or format for writing that you will have to learn and take on. Wherever you are, there's a type of writing. So there is public writing, which you may have heard of before. Public writing is considered any writing that would be for the public. You could even extend that as far as, for some people, extend it as far as writing that's done in public. But it's mostly, social media is a type of public writing. Um, Twitter, Facebook, that sort of thing. It's a good example of public writing. And then you have specialized fields in which you go into that each have their own type of writing. You also have school, which you've memorized by now the format for academic writing, and you know which version of citation that you're supposed to be using for your papers. So for instance, in our class, we're going to be using MLA. However, if you're working within the education field or in psychology, you're not going to be using MLA, you're going to be using APA. And it's just a different way of going about things. It's just a different type of format. It doesn't mean that what you do in your social media writing is wrong. It doesn't mean that it's right either. But it's just a different voice or a different um, type of writing. So, and that's where we start to get into discourses. So, looking at this piece, you'll see how the author talks about the word lone and how he's referred to as being writing as more like a poet than he is a scientist. His response to all of this is, I'm still fairly new at this science thing. I'm less than 4 years beyond the dark days of grad school. And yet, here I am with an advisor who tells me and will not tolerate the word lone. So forgive my naivete when I ask, why the hell not? Again, and this is a great question. But again, it's because, really, the short answer is because the field has its own format of writing. They almost have their own voice that they expect you to take on. And by the end of this piece, the author decides, and he talks about active voice, passive voice, semi-passive voice. And in the end, he decides that really he's going to use the word lone, whether his advisor likes it or not. And as he says, one of the most appealing aspects of science is we're more than just the people who push the pipette buttons. We're advocates who get to construct and tell the stories about our science. I can't think of a better lone career. So he still figures out a way to use the word lone. And he's looking for, and he's asking the question, why can't we be a bit more flowery in our writing in this field? Why can't I make my writing more appealing to readers? And that's a wonderful question. That's something that a lot of people have asked in various fields. Why can't I change this up a bit? The answer usually is that you can change it a little bit, but you have to be aware of the rigors of your field, the expectations that are set forth, how you're trying to change um, these formats and etc., and what the possible fallout or repercussions could be of you using words like loan. For this guy, really using the word loan isn't that big of a deal. Now, if he wanted to start referencing Shakespeare, for instance, within his scientific writing, I think we'd have a bit of a problem. But he's just really kind of wanting to work a little bit of humanism into the scientific writing that he's doing. So with this piece, the point of it is really to think about the writing that you're being asked to do, what you have to sacrifice to do it. What kind of writing do you have to do in your field, or will you have to do in your field? If you don't know, I would suggest that you start asking. You could start by asking your advisor. You can also look things up on Google, but I truly would take it to an advisor, a professor, or someone in your field. Start asking questions. Start looking at documents that you're asked to emulate to really see what's expected out of you. Look more closely at what you're being asked to read and get an idea of that. And one of the things you really do have to do is make sure that that's something that you're prepared to deal with. And when you're looking at a discourse community, such as the science community, and I'm making that very general, because there are so many types of sciences we could be looking at here, but I'm just going to put science in one lump uh, stack there. When you're looking at a discourse community, for instance, such as maybe technical writers, you have to be aware of what is acceptable and what isn't acceptable. So think about questions such as, what can I not do? What am I allowed to do? And what do I need to do to fit in here for my career? Everything has its own purpose as far as formats are concerned. Um, Formats for writing or discourse communities and discourses are everywhere. It's not something that you're going to be able to avoid once you start seeing discourse communities. It's almost as if you can't stop seeing discourse communities. And it's just a matter of choosing which community you fit best in. So, again, I'm not trying to ask you to challenge your entire career here or anything like that, but I think it is a good practice to understand what will be expected out of you as a professional and to also recognize and understand what it takes to fit in within that discourse community.